Hello, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Today, playing Orzhov Artifacts in Historic Best of 3. Now, this will be a deck tech video for this deck. If you just want to see gameplay, head on over to another video I made. You can click on the annotation up in the top right or in the description down below. It'll take you to a video where I play 3 Best of 3 matches with this deck. Head on over there, see how the deck turned out. Now, Artifacts in Historic, pretty interesting archetype. A lot of people these days have been exploring how to build a deck, experimenting with a lot of different things. I've been seeing lots of different builds, but this is the first time I've seen an Orzhov build that really ticked something inside me, and I knew I had to try it out. The main reason for that is because of this card right here, Herald of Anguish. This thing is a beast. It's a demon, actually. It's a 5/5 for 7 flying demon, and it says at the beginning of your end step, each opponent discards a card. Pretty awesome. Then it has a pretty cool ability. Pay 2, sacrifice an artifact. Target creature gets -2/-2 until the end of turn. If you have a lot of mana, a lot of artifacts, you can wipe your opponent's board completely out. Now, the real cool thing about this card is that first keyword, actually, improvise. Improvise says your artifacts can help you cast this spell. Each artifact you tap pays for 1 generic mana. If you have 5 untapped artifacts, you can pay 2 black to get Herald of Anguish out onto the field. We can do this pretty early in this deck because we have some ways of making a lot of artifacts. Let's talk about some of those. So the first one, of course, is Barbed Spike, a pretty neat little equipment, 2 CMC, enters the battlefield, it creates a 1/1 colorless Thopter, and equips the Barbed Spike to the Thopter, giving it +1/+2. Or sorry, +1/+0. Not very exciting, but it does create 2 artifacts on the field that we can use for Improvise. Along with that, we have 4 copies of Blood Fountain, a 1 CMC artifact. It enters the battlefield, and it creates a blood token. The blood token is also an artifact. Again, 2 artifacts for 1 card. Both of these in the early game can really help us get a Herald of Anguish out onto the field very quickly. Now, there are other reasons why we would want a whole bunch of artifacts on our side of the field. The first one being Nettlecyst. Nettlecyst is a pretty neat equipment, 3 CMC, living weapon. Living weapon means we also create a 0/0 black Phyrexian germ, that cute little guy to the right of the Nettlecyst, and we attach it to the germ. Then the Nettlecyst says equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. So if we have 1 Barbed Spike and 1 Blood Fountain on the field, and then we play out a Nettlecyst, well, the germ is going to be a 5/5 from that alone. Next, we are also playing Karn, Scion of Urza. Full play set of this one. It's -2, creates 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature tokens with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. It's going to create these awesome robots, and they're all going to be the size of the number of artifacts that we control. 7/7s, 8/8s are not uncommon when we put out a Karn, Scion of Urza. On top of that, Karn's +1/-1 allow us to get extra cards into our hand. Who doesn't like extra cards? Next, we are playing a bunch of pretty awesome artifact creatures. We are playing 4 copies of Esper Sentinel. Esper Sentinel is really good in Historic right now because everybody is playing so many instances and sorceries. We're going to draw a whole bunch of cards if we get an Esper Sentinel onto the field turn 1. And it's really cool if we can pump it up with some of our equipment because it'll be very hard for our opponent to pay that tax. We will just keep drawing cards. They'll have to remove it. Vault Scourge is a sweet 1/1 flying lifelink creature. It costs 2 mana, but technically it really only costs 1 because it costs 1 generic and 1 black Phyrexian mana. Phyrexian mana can be paid with either black mana or 2 life. Majority of the time, we're paying 2 life. Then we have 4 copies of Stonecoil Serpent, Reach, Trample, and Protection from Multicolor. Protection from Multicolor is definitely relevant in the format. Plenty of multicolored creatures out there. And then Stonecoil Serpent enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, so we can dump as much mana into this card as we have available. Next, one more equipment that I should talk about, Shadow Spear. It's not too exciting, but it's a very good card. +1/+1, trample, and lifelink. Trample is very important because if we create giant robots with Karn, or if we get a giant Nettlecyst out with on our Esper Sentinel, for example, it can get chump blocked very quickly. So with the Shadow Spear, we can get trample, we can gain a little bit of life, all that's good. Last thing in the deck is a little bit of removal in the form of Portable Hole, and then over in the lands, we are playing 4 copies of Blink Moth Nexus and 1 copy of Hive of the Eye Tyrant. Both of those will be relevant in some games. Over in the sideboard, we have 3 copies of Thoughtseize, of course, like reaching in our opponent's hands and taking out their most valuable cards. Really good against control matchups, of course. 3 copies of Vanishing Verse, a little bit of removal for our monocolored opponents, 3 copies of Witch's Vengeance to take out go wide strategies, and then we have a little bit of graveyard hate in the form of 2 Grafdigger's Cages and 2 Relic of Progenitus. Grafdigger's Cage doubles as hate against Collected Company, of course. And then finally, 2 copies of Mazemind Tome. This is really good to bring in those really grindy matches, maybe against control. Just gives us a little bit of extra value. We can draw extra cards, gain a little bit of life. It's a great card to have in the sideboard. All right, so that is the deck. Please do let me know what you think about it, and if you've tried it yourself, how well did it play? Or have you been building other types of artifact decks in Historic, or have you run into any that look pretty cool? Like I said, do let me know down in the comments, and make sure you go and check out the gameplay video. Link is in the description if you'd like to check that one out. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Take care for now, and see you in the next one.